Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be talking about all of the matchups that you guys need to keep an eye on for the Buccaneers Week 4 matchup versus the Chicago Bears. We have a shorter week this week. The Buccaneers do play on Thursday Night Football, so I'm going to be having plenty of videos coming out in these next 3 days. Honestly, it might be 2 videos a day. I think that's what we're going to be doing. I'm recording this on October 5th at literally 10:13 p.m. I should have this video up within the next hour. I should have another video up within the next hour as well. 2 videos on the 6th, and then hopefully 2 videos on the 7th as well. So we're really pushing out the content, baby. So let's get started talking about some of the matchups that we need to keep an eye on in this next game versus the Bears. The first matchup I want to keep an eye on is Khalil Mack versus Tristan Wirfs. Now, in my opinion, Khalil Mack is probably the best pass rusher in the NFL. I know his stats don't necessarily say as much, given I believe last year he had 8.5 sacks, I believe, but he is still the best pass rusher in the NFL, probably, in my opinion. So it just continues this absolute insane run that Tristan Wirfs has been on to start the first month of his overall NFL career. He's gone up against Cam Jordan, he's gone up against Joey Bosa, now he's going to be going up against Khalil Mack. It's insane, and so far so good. Tristan Wirfs has been phenomenal, so I'm definitely hoping and he can keep his streak going against Khalil Mack and really just show that he is one of the better young offensive tackles in the NFL already in his rookie season. So definitely pay attention to this matchup and see how Wirfs does against Khalil Mack, who is arguably the best pass rusher in the NFL today. The second matchup I want to keep an eye on is going to be Nick Foles just versus the entirety of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. I will be talking about this in the preview video, but bit of a quarterback controversy going on in Chicago. Mitchell Trubisky started the season as the starting quarterback. He was then benched. Nick Foles then came in. I believe he led them to a come-from-behind victory versus the Falcons. LOL to that. But then in his next game, he really didn't look that impressive. So what Nick Foles are we going to be seeing versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Are we going to see the Nick Foles that brought them back to defeat the Falcons? Or did we see the Nick Foles where the following week he really didn't have that great of a game at all, did not score a ton of points? We're going to have to wait and see. The last time the Bucs played Nick Foles was actually last year when he was on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and he got benched in that game in favor of Gardner Minshew. He wasn't hurt or anything. He was actually just returning from an injury, but then he got benched in favor of Gardner Minshew, and then they traded him to the Chicago Bears. So I think it's safe to say that, you know, in recent memory, in recent history, the Bucs have been good against Nick Foles. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he does against this Buccaneers defense, who just gave up a lot of points and a lot of yardage to 6th overall pick in this most recent NFL draft, Justin Herbert and the Los Angeles Chargers. So I'm very curious to see how Nick Foles does. Is he going to get benched again if he continues to have a bad game versus the Bucs? We'll have to wait and see. That will be the second time in 2 years that Foles would be benched versus the Buccaneers. So that's going to be a very curious and interesting thing to keep an eye on. The next matchup I want to highlight is going to be Ronald Jones versus the Bears front 7. Now, Khalil Mack is a part of that, but they also have some phenomenal talent along that defensive line. Akeem Hicks is there, among others. Just absolute beasts of defenders on that defensive line. And then also in their linebacking core, you have Danny Trevathan, Roquan Smith, Robert Quinn. This is no joke. This Bears front 7 is one of the better units in the entire NFL, in my opinion. They can control games by themselves. They're that good. So I'm very curious to see how Ronald Jones does. He is now coming off of his second ever 100-yard rushing game. This one was against the Chargers. So I really want to see how Ronald Jones does. Hopefully the offensive line can see some consistency in their run blocking and pass blocking. We pretty much have to bank on that. And I'm really hoping that they're starting to gel with Brady and finally develop that chemistry as a unit, because I mean, last week was pretty darn impressive from that offensive line, but now they're going up against a very impressive front 7 yet again. And if they don't hold, that is going to be absolutely killer in terms of the overall success that the offense can have. So very curious to see how Ronald Jones does. I know a lot of people have also been hyping up Vaughn this past week, which is very interesting in my opinion, considering a lot of people weren't thinking about him until this most recent game versus the Chargers where he had a touchdown. So, it is what it is, myself included. I haven't really been thinking about Vaughn either, but he did prove that he probably deserves a few more touches here moving forward. Leonard Fournette is still dealing with an injury. LeSean McCoy got dinged up a little bit in that Chargers game as well. So we could be seeing a lot of Ronald Jones and a little bit more of Vaughn in this game versus the Bears, especially on a shortened week. So going to be very interested to see what happens there. The second to last matchup I want to talk about is actually a player I just mentioned. It's going to be Robert Quinn versus Donovan Smith. And again, okay, I'm going to be quick on this one, okay, I promise. Now, Donovan Smith had a very good week last week versus the Chargers. I thought he did overall a pretty darn good job. Now he's going up against Robert Quinn, who in my opinion is one of the most underrated pass rushers in the NFL. I think he's a top 15 pass rusher. I believe that wholeheartedly. You guys can disagree with me if you want down in the comment section below, but Robert Quinn's legit. He is very good at rushing the passer. He's a very good run stopper, and he's going up against Donovan Smith, who is now looking to build off of the very strong performance that he had against the Chargers. And I will say it wasn't perfect. He still had a little bit of a rough time in terms of his run blocking, but Melvin Ingram was not playing in that game. Now he's going up against Robert Quinn, so I'm going to be very, very interested to see what happens in that matchup. Will Donovan Smith actually be able to build up some consistency in his game, or is he going to falter a little bit when paired up with a pass rusher like Robert Quinn? That one's going to be worth paying a lot of attention to, in my opinion. Finally, guys, the last matchup that I want to talk about is going to be Jimmy Graham versus Lavonte David and Devin White. Now, you all remember Jimmy Graham. He was on the Saints for years and made our lives as Bucs fans living hell, but now he's bounced around to a couple of teams. He was with the Seahawks for a little bit. I think he was with a couple of other teams as well. I think he was on the Packers for a little bit, and now he's on the Chicago Bears, where he's actually having, in my opinion, a little bit of a career resurgency. He's not looking terrible, especially in the red zone. It's definitely not the Jimmy Graham of old when he was paired up with Drew Brees, because that was borderline unstoppable, but he's looking a lot better than he has the past couple of years, where he really just tanked in terms of his regression. But he's going up against, arguably again, the best linebacking duo in the NFL with Lavonte David and Devin White. Lavonte David still continues to play phenomenal. Every single game so far this year, he has shown up time and time again. He's been a tackling machine. He's been getting tackles for loss. He's been looking great in pass coverage. Lavonte David's been awesome. Devin White faltered a little bit last week versus the Chargers. He did have a fumble recovery. He did have 4 tackles, but it definitely wasn't the Devin White game that we were all used to. I don't know if it wasn't just a situation where he wasn't being around the football enough. Maybe he was getting subbed out. In fact, he was even getting subbed out a little bit for Kevin Minter. So I don't know if it was just an injury situation. Maybe he got dinged up a little bit, but it definitely, again, was not the Devin White game that we are also accustomed to seeing at this point, where he is literally just a tackling machine and absolutely everywhere. So I don't think it's, necessarily a bad thing. Everybody has a bad game once in a while, and it really wasn't even that bad of a game. It was just an all right game from Devin White. But I expect him in this game to really get back in terms of his overall amazing play that we've been seeing from him during the start of this regular season. He's going to be going up against Jimmy Graham. I guess you could even throw David Montgomery in here as well, and Cordero Patterson, because that man is now playing running back a little bit. So this Bears offense has a lot of weird stuff going on. That's really the only way I can describe it. I mean, Cordero Patterson is a running back. How does that work? I don't really know. He is a dangerous weapon for sure, but right now, this Bears offense is looking kind of weird. Nick Foles at quarterback, I don't know. David Montgomery's a very good running back, in my opinion. We're definitely going to have to be careful of him. But, Cordero Patterson is receiving back. Pay attention to some trickery there. Also, keep an eye on Jimmy Graham. So, I guess really, it's more so Lavonte David and Devin White versus Jimmy Graham, David Montgomery, Cordero Patterson. and that's pretty much that. So yeah, gonna be some interesting matchups. I want to see how the Bears use Cordero Patterson. Like, are they gonna use him a lot in end arounds and like weird running back routes, and how's that gonna be? David Montgomery is a decent runner in his own right, although I believe the Chicago Bears offensive line hasn't been run blocking that well this year, so that should be interesting. And then finally, Jimmy Graham, who can be pretty darn dangerous, especially in the red zone this year. He has been phenomenal in that role. So overall, guys, that's pretty much all I've got in terms of matchups that you guys need to pay attention to. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. I'm going to be having one more video come out tonight, 2 videos coming out tomorrow, and then probably 2 more videos coming out on Wednesday. We're going to be staying very busy here on the channel leading up to that Bears game. But guys, let me know what you thought about all these matchups down in the comment section below, and what other matchups are you guys going to be keeping an eye on in this game versus the Bears. But guys, until the next video or the next live stream, I'll see you in the next one. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs!